Okay, so let's kind of finish up here talking about some pricing odds and ends. We can use pricing as a way to promote our competition. So a good example of this is we have a state park near us, and the average campsite would cost them $8 to $10 for the night to completely offer, and they're going to charge $15 a night, and that's going to help the neighboring commercial campground stay in business, where they have that same pricing, or that's their their break even pricing point. Overall, while we're also promoting our competition, we're also making sure that we're not overly crowded and promoting people to look at other services as well. We can also look at market conditions. So products that are in season or have seasonal appeal will have a higher or lower rate in and out of season. And I think about like pumpkins, like more people buy pumpkins and pay a higher price per pumpkin probably than they in the fall than they would in the spring. And there's some other factors there too, of course. And then also, products geared toward children or economically disadvantaged populations may have a lower going rate. And I think about this with like a child t-shirt versus an adult t-shirt. The child t-shirt is always going to be a little bit cheaper. There's different reasons to have differential pricing plans for a product or service. And I'm not saying it's all bad or it's all good, but there are just different justifications for it. And that could be customer characteristics, different products or service levels, distribution demands, and merit pricing. We also need to be sensitive to changes in price. So we have to understand that sales or drops in sales or attendance, so to speak, could be a result of an increase in price. We have to sometimes be okay with adjusting the price, saying, I need to increase or decrease this price, or saying that an increase in price isn't exactly warranted. Making money just for the sake of creating additional revenue may not always be okay. And then overall, just understand where you're sitting at for pricing and why. Something that may be important to look at is reference price, and that's the amount that the consumer feels the service or product should cost. And it's really derived from the experience, the consumer's experience with similar services over time. Then we can also look at objective price, and it's defined as the actual price charged for the service. And then we have subjective price, which is the consumer's perception, and it's the difference between the reference price and the objective price, right? So what is, if they think that something is cheaper than it actually is, then we're going to have a negative subjective price. If they think it should be more than what it is, then we're going to have a positive subjective price. When we think about the subjective price, we often have an expression for things that are good or bad, right? So we think about things that as being expensive. So that's when the price per unit is beyond what we thought it should be. Then we think about stuff like reasonable, cheap, bargain, a good deal. That's when the price is lower than we expected. And stuff like rip off and prohibitive is also in the category of expensive, right? Like this is more than I thought it should be. So some things we can do to affect the reference price, what people think it should or shouldn't be, right? We can inform the consumer of the actual cost of the price. So, they may think this only costs a quarter to make when it's actually 50 cents. So we say, you know what, the actual cost of creating this is 50 cents before delivery and other things. We can emphasize the value or the benefits from the product. So, this product is more expensive than when you expected per se, but these are the added values or the added benefits or the longevity of the product. Then we can compare the cost of the service with a similar service or activity offered elsewhere. This may cost you 50 cents, but this is very similar to the same product or service costing 50 cents in different communities, different towns, or so forth. All right, let's do a quick summary here. The price of a service is the quantification of the exchange between the provider and the customer. What is the customer paying for the product or service? What the customer gives up in order to receive the service is the price. So it could not just be monetary value, it could also be psychological or otherwise that we talked about. So that includes opportunities, efforts, and psychological stressors. Monetary pricing helps the organization to recover costs of production, manage consumer behavior, and establish value for the service or product. And there are several ways to establish that price. Overall, we covered quite a few of those. And finally, it's important for financial managers to understand and consider the sensitivity of consumers to price changes, whether that be positive or negative. And that concludes our series of presentations on pricing as related to products and services within parks, recreation, leisure, sport, and tourism.